Welcome to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. And also, as always, we're streaming live all over the world in the WDBO app. This show is, of course, brought to you by the Magic Mechanic, Larry Perry himself. He's here answering your questions on your car, your boat, your truck. I should say car, truck, van first. But, you know, every once in a while, a generator or a boat question slips in. That's because if it's got an engine, Larry likely has the answer. 844-580-9326. That'll put you on the air. Give me a call. Give me your year, your make, your model, and then I'll pretend I know what you're talking about and pass you on to the pro, Larry himself. 844-580-WDBO, or you can send us an open mic for free right there for free in the Google App Store or the App Store with your Apple or Android device. Just download the app, push the button that says open mic, and it's that simple. Send me your best 15 seconds. We'll put you on the air in about an hour and a half. But right now, it is your time to get on the air with Larry Perry. 844-580-9326. Larry, how you doing today?
We're doing fantastic. First off, I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and let's just all hope that we have a happy, healthy 2023 and things go good. Hey, folks, it's 3 o'clock, and I'm Larry Perry. I'm a little under the weather. I'm on a strict diet of Sudafed and hot coffee. I brought a cold back with me from the Sierra Nevada mountains, so let's put it that way. Hey, you're tuned in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show, so you new listeners know this is an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program where we help you with your car problems and just about anything mechanical, and it's been our pleasure to do so for now over 31 years. Me personally, I'm a shop owner and been a master auto technician since 1982. To make the program work, we need your phone calls, and the lines are open at 844-580-9326. And remember, all your calls and your car questions get indexed and placed on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So other folks searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same needed information. Think about that. Folks will be able to play your car questions back and hear my comments years and years from now. So we'll be around on the internet, I guess, forever. So dash warning lights, poor fuel economy, maybe you got an oil consumption issue with a Hyundai or a Kia. You know, those are very, very common issues. AC may not be working correctly. Folks, AC nowadays is a lot different than it was years ago. You know, they've got electronic components on them now that can go bad and not require, you know, replacing a whole entire AC system like you used to have to. These are all things that, you know, a lot of folks don't know about. Now, even a lot of mechanics don't know about it. You know, the first thing they're going to do is replace everything bolted to the car to fix an AC, and that's normally not necessary nowadays. Maybe you got vibration, steering pulling one side to the other, irregular tire wear, warranty, recall questions. Maybe you got a recall notice in the mail, antique, classic car issues. I always have a lot full of the old stuff at Magic Mechanic. Unfortunately, I'm usually the one that has to work on it. Only one old enough there nowadays to keep them going. And you can ask any car question, whether it be on a gas, a hybrid, an electric, a diesel vehicle. We do a lot of diesels. You know, everybody thinks they can just buy an electric car and they're home free. Well, folks, let me tell you, the shock, struts, front end, wheel bearings, brake systems, power windows, electronic steering components. We're getting to the point now where we've got so many electrics down there. It's getting the biggest part with the electrics when they come in for repairs is getting the stinking parts for them. You can't hardly get a part for these daggone things. There's just no supply for them. I don't know, you know, I hope it gets better as things go on, but I'm telling you, we got people waiting on window motors and just stupid stuff, you know, things that you would expect a car company to have in stock. But yeah, there's a lot of issues with that, and all cars too. I mean, we still run into some parts issues, and a lot of the stuff out there nowadays. You take a 10-year-old car, Well, they may not make computers for it anymore, so we're having to know a secret handshake with somebody in Belgium or something to get a computer for the daggone things. It's really becoming extremely challenging for parts in the aftermarket, as a vehicle starts to age. So we really are running into some real challenges, but remember, also, even if you got a newer car, a new car, we get, I've got TSBs, recall information on just about everything they made up till 2023. So all you got to do is give us a call, 844-580-9326. Give our producer, Josh, like he said, year, make, and model of your vehicle, description of your problem, and you'll be placed on a brief hold. And, well, we'll get to your call in the order that it was received. And remember, for immediate help, you can call our shop number and speak to my general manager, JD, at 407-629-2661. We also want to mention the open mic option, where you can go to WDBO.com on your smartphone and download the app, and you can leave us an open mic car question. Just give us the year, make, and model, and a brief description of the problem you're having, and we're going to get to those at the bottom of the 4 o'clock news break. You can also ask a car question by emailing me, Larry at magicmechanic.com. I can't guarantee them we'll get them all fit into the show today, but if I can fit them in, I will. And then if I don't, then I'll try my best to get them answered by the first of the week. And folks, just so you know, we were in Lake Tahoe, and the internet service, even cell phone service up there, absolutely was horrible. And I took a laptop with me to try to keep up with email estimates and tech questions, and I didn't have any luck at it at all. I finally give up. I answered the last of them today, so if you had an email into me and I haven't responded, well, I start off with an apology for what good that does. But I've got them all answered as far as I know up to this point. So if you haven't gotten anything back from me, just look in your spam folder if you don't see it on your regular email. But I have answered every daggone one of them, and there was probably close to 200 of them. So I've got those answered for you. And if there's any other questions, or if you just want to hop on board with us today, 844-580-9326. I've been out the last couple of weeks, and I thought I was going to be missing today, but I got enough voice back to fumble through this program. So bear with me. Who are we going to kick the program off with today, Josh?
Let's head on over to Davenport, where Michael's got a question about his 2015 GMC Terrain. Go ahead, Michael.
Hello. I have a 2015 Terrain, and I was told it needs a fuel pressure sensor. And when I go to shops, I get different talk from somebody says I got two of them, a low pressure, one and a high pressure. One somebody says I got one in the fuel pump and one in the front of the car. I got people that tell me that they're going to have to take the whole engine apart because you can't get to it. I was wondering if you could tell me of the truth about a pressure sensor for my fuel. Yeah.
Okay. Michael, you have two fuel systems on that car. One of them is a supply system, and that would be considered the low pressure system. It's going to be operating in the neighborhood of about 35 to 40 pounds, somewhere around in there. Now, you got your high pressure system. Now, the high pressure system is for your direct fuel injection system. Now, that has its own mechanical pump, and that produces about 22 to 2,300 pounds of fuel pressure at the injectors itself. And then when they open up electronically, that's what drives that high pressure fuel into your cylinders during compression stroke. So that gasoline is directly injected into the cylinder as opposed to being directed in front of an intake valve like they used to. Now, either one of those systems can go bad, and it can give you a low fuel pressure sensor issue, and you have both systems on there. So a person with like a Tech 2 scan tool, which is the same thing we use as GM uses, and we also use a laptop version of that as well. But the thing is, it's going to take. This isn't like going to 7-Eleven and getting your car fixed anymore. It's going to have some sophisticated equipment hooked to it and really to get the answers that you need. And when I say that is, a technician is going to have to hook this up to the vehicle. He's going to have to scan the computer system, and he's going to have to sit there and he's going to have to look and see what these sensors are actually reading. Just because you got a code doesn't really mean anything. You have to be able to sit there and evaluate the data stream, look at the values that these sensors are actually emitting, so that way you can see exactly if there's a problem with a sensor or whether there's a problem with a fuel pump. It's not the end of the world, regardless of what it is. I mean, it's a GM vehicle. We can get parts for it. That's the bottom line, but it's going to need to have a little scanning. And the most important thing, I know you're in Davenport, that's a ways from the shop, but it's kind of like this. You need talent. You need experience in order to get it diagnosed correctly, and to not have somebody come up to you and say, well, you needed this whole entire bushel basket full of parts. So the diagnostic part of this is the most important thing. And if the person that maybe did a scan on it and got a code, and that's about as far as you got at this point, you really haven't gotten very far. It's going to have some diag work done on it, and with some pretty sophisticated scan equipment in order to really be able to communicate with your computer system. And then you can get some valid information. You know exactly what you're dealing with. And there may even have to be a couple tests performed in order to really be able to diagnose it 100%. But while I'm on the subject, not just with your vehicle, but any of these direct injected engines, I don't care where it's a GM, a Ford, or a Hyundai. Folks, the biggest thing with these nowadays is these injectors will keep working even when they're bad. And when I say that, what happens is you'll start getting misfires and stuff like that. The engine's not performing 100%. And what folks will do is they'll take them in, a mechanic, he's going to throw spark plugs in it and maybe some coils or whatever and send you on your way with the same problem you came in with. What I want you to understand is if these engines are not running 100% correctly, it usually means that there's an injector, one of these direct injectors, that is literally, you got to think about it, this injector is actually in the cylinder, in the engine, where all the combustion and fire and pressure, everything is taking place. So the tips of them over a period of time will almost get welded over. And when this happens, it restricts the fuel coming out of them, and it causes the cylinder to go lean. And when it goes lean inside of a cylinder means extremely hot. And I mean, I'm talking torch hot. So it burns valves, causes gaskets to deteriorate. It can even cause piston and cylinder wall damage, even block damage over running an engine too lean. So, if you got a misfire, or if it's not running 100%, you notice that all the power's not there. Unlike years ago, well, it's probably just a bad spark plug. It didn't hurt anything. Nowadays, it will fry your motor if it's not running 100% correctly. So if it's running bad and you got a check engine light on, don't ignore it, because it could actually cost you a whole entire engine over one stupid fuel injector. So heed my warning when it comes to that. Giving one a good tune-up over a misfire or not running good, that's part of the course. But if you still have the problem after that, it's time to really get involved with it and get some serious diagnostic work done to it before you wind up burning valves and causing yourself a whole lot of grief and some very, very, very expensive repairs. Michael, I hope that helps you, and we wish you the best of luck and have a happy new year.
Thank you so much, Michael, calling from Davenport. Let's head to another D, where Nick is calling from DeLand. Nick's got a problem with his Mustang's AC. Go ahead, Nick.
Larry Perry, Nick Figueretto, used to work with you a couple of years ago.
Hey, buddy.
Good to talk to you again, my friend.
Hey, Sam. A pleasure to hear from you, Nick.
Yeah, man. And, back in the day, I had a Hyundai Elantra, and I've upgraded to a Mustang GT, a 2018. And
you got a GT?
I've got a little issue with the AC.
You got a GT?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I love those cars. Actually, I had it was a Stage 3 GT, about 720 horsepower worth. And that was a very fun car. I had a blast with that.
Yeah, I've only got an H-pipe and the tune, and I'm pushing close to 500, not 700.
Now
but,
we
it's
can
all right.
we can fix that with a supercharger. You know that, right?
Larry, I will need a divorce lawyer as well if that's the case. So I know you're up against the break, but real quick, my AC, if it's not on full blast, it blows intermittent as far as like how hard it'll blow the air. Like if I put it on 3 or 4 out of 7, it'll be going good, then it'll drop down to almost nothing, then pop back up to where it should be. What am I looking at, Larry?
And most likely the automatic control for the fan system. Is the fan going completely off?
No, it drops down to pretty much where it would be at like the minimum speed.
Okay.
It kind of bounces around.
Okay. That's usually the fan control module. You know, you got the automatic temp control system in there, and what it does is fan speeds will drop. Now, if you don't run it on auto, does it still do the same thing?
Yeah, no, I rarely ever put it on auto. It's always set to one of the numbers 1 through 7 as far as this fan speed.
Okay. Listen, Nick, it may be a bad fan. And let me tell you what I would probably do. I'd get it in the when I would have it in the shop. What I would do is I would put an amp probe on the power leads going to the fan motor itself. Let it run, and then when it starts slowing down, I'm going to look for an increase in amperage draw. If I see that, what that's telling me is that fan, you know, for some reason or other, it's kind of binding up a little bit. You know, it's drawing more amps. There's something going on in the fan motor itself. That would be my gut feeling under the circumstances if it's not happening on auto. You know, I would think that there was more along the lines of an issue with the fan itself. Something's causing it to draw too many amps, and it's also lowering the RPM of the fan motor itself. So, but that's a good way to test it. It's just simply with an amp probe. If it starts, you know, if it's drawing 5 or 6 amps and then all of a sudden it's going up to 12, 14 amps, that means there's something actually wrong with the fan motor itself. A bad connection or a burnt connector could also cause you a ground loss, could also cause the same type of issue. Nick, it is absolutely fantastic to hear from you. Stop by and see me sometime.
I will definitely do it. Josh will let me in the building, so I'll see you soon.
We'll see about that. We'll see about that. Thank you so much, Nick, for calling us today. You can be next, and also thanks, Nick, for hiring me a couple times at a couple different radio stations. 844-580-9326. 844-580-WDBO is your chance to hop on with Larry Perry, the magic mechanic himself. You got a question about your car or your truck or your Mustang or your other kinds of cars that have other kinds of problems. 844-580-WDBO. We'll be right back. 9326 is your ticket to automotive expertise, brought to you by the soothing, Sudafed-filled voice of Larry Perry. 844-580-WDBO is your chance to get on the air, or feel free to send us an open mic. We'll put you on in about an hour right there in the free WDBO app. Let's head on up to Mims, where Wayne's got an issue going on. Go ahead, Wayne.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Wayne. Tell me what you got going on. I'm reading this, and I'm like, this might be over my head. Where's this thermal bypass located at on this vehicle?
It's underneath. It's inline in the tranny.
Okay, this is in the transmission cooler line then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Because there's a couple other questionable ones in the cooling system, and that's the reason I had to ask.
Yeah, and I was just wondering if it's worth messing with, or should I leave it alone? It heats up the tranny quicker, and they're saying that it'll stick and end up burning up your tranny because it won't let the go through the radiator or the cooler.
Yeah, 42 REs, 46 REs, all those older predecessors of that transmission. Listen, I'm going to tell you, I don't like them whatsoever because anything will plug those daggone things up, and they can take a transmission out, especially if you're towing. The good part about it is you've got a transmission temp gauge in that truck, right?
Yes, sir.
See, when you're towing or anything, at least you can monitor that. On the older ones, we couldn't do that. Folks would be out here driving these things, and there's no transmission fluid running through any cooler. So those things would just sit there and cook themselves. and builders sit there and build these transmissions and throw them back in these vehicles, and they wouldn't last 3 weeks. And finally, it's like, wait a minute, something's burning these things up. And come to find out, it's those daggone bypasses that they made, and to heat the fluid up. I don't like them. See, they also have them, Wayne, to where they prevent drain back. So if you park your truck and you let it set for, let's just say a month, and what will happen is the fluid in the torque converter would actually run back into the transmission. Well, they found out if they put like a one-way check valve in these cooler lines, that it would prevent that from happening. And that was a great idea. The problem with it is the check valves would get plugged up, and the next thing you know, you're taking out a transmission because of that. And you really cannot, in my opinion, as long as you've got your transmission fluid temp gauge, just keep an eye on that, especially if you're towing. Make sure you know where it runs normally, and if you see anything vary from that, then start questioning it. But, you also want to make sure, and if it was mine, of course, I would have AMSOIL in that transmission. That's an expensive one to have to build in that 3500. Wayne, have a happy new year, buddy, and we appreciate your call.
Thank you so much, Wayne. That opens up a line for you to talk to Larry right here on W, known as the Magic Mechanic, of course. Drive down Lee Road, you'll see his sign. It's got that catchy wizard logo, so he's a magician at what he does. 844-580-9326. 844-580-WDBO will put you on with the man himself, Larry Perry, answering your questions. Anything going on with your car, your truck, and you just don't know exactly what it is, there's a chance Larry does. 844-580-9326. Martin's been hanging on for a chance to talk to Larry. Martin, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you to take my call.
No problem. Go ahead.
I got a Nissan Altima 2002, and when I put on drive, it takes like 4 minutes to engage.
Okay. And then if you go back into drive after it's warmed up, do you have any problem?
No. After that, it's drive normal.
Okay. Martin, let me explain to you what's going on here. A vehicle transmission, over time, we've got all these seals inside your transmission. And what typically winds up happening is the parts that actually retain fluid pressure to engage a gear. We've got these clutch drums that have to engage, and they use these pistons with these rubber seals to accumulate the fluid pressure in order to give you that drive, in order to engage a particular gear. Now, when you get to a point where you put one in gear and it doesn't do anything until the fluid warms up a little bit, that's telling me that you have a piston seal somewhere in that transmission that is leaking and bypassing fluid until it gets hot. Once it gets hot, then, of course, it will go ahead and retain the fluid pressure and give you the engagement that the transmission itself needs. This is just, let's see, how can I say it? It's very cliche of an older transmission. This is what you run into as piston seals, rubber components inside of a transmission start getting hard, and they're not resilient any longer. So it's kind of like this. Me personally, I don't think it's going to hurt anything. The worst case scenario is the transmission is going to need to come out and be overhauled. I don't know how long it's going to last under the circumstances. I know this for a fact. Your transmission is due to be removed and taken apart, disassembled, and actually rebuilt. Since we really don't have a whole lot to lose, Martin, and this is not something I normally tell folks to try, but you might want to get a bottle of like Lucas transmission fluid conditioner, and put it in right on top of your fluid. and see if that maybe helps a little bit. I don't like these products that, stop leaks and swell seals and that sort of thing. But in your case, worst case scenario is the transmission is going to have to come out of it and be rebuilt anyway. And you're probably looking at about a $3,800 job, when it gets to that point. But what I'm telling you is go ahead and try a transmission fluid additive. And what that will probably do is it may help soften those seals up a little bit in the transmission in order for you to be able to, who knows, maybe it'll give you another month, maybe it'll give you another 6 months, maybe it'll give you another year. I don't know. But at this point, you are definitely going to be looking 100% at a transmission overhaul. But like I said, nothing ventured, nothing gained in this place. If everything else in the transmission's working okay, I'd put some conditioner in it, and what it'll do is it'll help swell those seals up a little bit in your transmission. And, it might buy you some time. But like I said, it's inevitable. It's going to need to be overhauled. But if this will get you another little bit of time out of it, then so be it. But give that a shot, try it, and like I said, let's keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully it'll give you a little more time and keep the money in the bank instead of in a shop's pocket. So let's give that a whirl and see what happens. I appreciate your call, and have a happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mark.
Thank you so much, Martin. If you've got a call for Larry, or if you've got a question for Larry, call now, 844-580-9326. About an hour away from your open mic section. Just leave us an open mic for free in the free WDBO app, 844-580-WDBO. Kelly is calling from Orlando. Got a question about her Odyssey. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hi.
Hi,
Very
Kelly.
glad you're feeling better. Back on the show. Love listening to your show.
Well, thank you.
So I have an older Honda Odyssey, and I just bought my second bottle of power steering fluid. It seems like, it'll start whining and then needs to be capped off or topped off there. Is it okay if I keep driving on it?
Well, Kelly, listen, there's something leaking if you're having to add fluid to the power steering system. Now, I don't know where the leak is. The most common places would be your steering rack, the steering pump, or probably a power steering hose. Let me tell you where I've become concerned. Your steering rack on that vehicle is right in front of the rear catalytic converter on that 3.5 VTEC motor. And any fluid that leaks out of that power steering rack or a hose or something like that could wind up blowing back and getting on the catalytic converter. Now keep in mind, these catalytic converters get up to about 900 degrees, and that will ignite oil without any question whatsoever. So something like power steering fluid leaking back on top of it, depending on the amount of oil that would get on it, could ignite, and cause a fire. To put something like that off that's leaking, and we know that it's leaking, it wouldn't be prudent on our part to ignore it at all. It's something that definitely needs to be investigated and find out what it is and repair it. Those are great vehicles. I mean, I've got neighbors that's got 07 and 08 Honda Odysseys. They got a brand new car sitting in the parking lot, but they keep those old Odysseys around forever. They never get rid of them. I'm like, wow. But but they're great vehicles. They really are. They serve an awesome purpose.
Yeah.
So
yes, they are.
It's kind of like this. Steering rack, it'd be a little pricey. Maybe $1,000 or something like that if it is a steering rack. Power steering pump and hoses, of course, would be cheaper than than that because they're nowhere near as labor or expensive of a part to replace. But, if there's any question on where the leak is originating from, what we will do is we put dye in the power steering system, and we actually run the car a little bit, turn the wheels 100 times, and find out where the leak's at. We put the dye in the system, then we take an ultraviolet light over everything that is related to the power steering system. And what it does is anywhere where there's a leak in that system, it glows bright yellow. So there's no question, on what it is once we do pinpoint it. We know 100% where the leak is actually originating from. But due to the fire aspect and the possibility of that, Kelly, I really, that really would concern me. And, the thing is, when you get something like that that's leaking and we're sitting out here maybe in some crazy traffic and, the cooling fan's kicking on underneath the hood and it's blowing all this air back and you got oil hitting on a 900-degree part, it's just a recipe for disaster. What's really funny, and a story to kind of go along with this, Hyundai and Kia are replacing just about every engine they ever built. And it's really funny on how this all come about. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is making them replace all these engines because the engines would just literally come apart. They're not making them replace the engines because the engines are bad. They're making them replace the engines because of the fire hazard that is associated with their engines failing. See, what happens is the engines will throw a rod, and when they do, they sling a rod right out of the oil pan. And when this happens, that engine oil gets on the catalytic converter, and the vehicle just bursts into flames. And it's very common. Almost every car you see burning on the side of the road is usually a Hyundai or a Kia. It's usually because of the same thing. They throw a rod, and it catches on fire. But it's amazing that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration didn't make them replace the engines because the engines were lousy. They were making them replace these engines because when they fail, the cars burst into flames. So, it just, I'm kind of like, you got to be kidding me. But that's what's going on in our industry. So just, you see a car company and the government getting involved with oil hitting catalytic converters and catching on fire. We know what your problem is. And it's a whole lot cheaper than a motor replacement. Right. So we need to get on the ball with this one. Kelly, thank you so much for your call. You have a happy New Year.
Thank you, too.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That opens up a line for you to hop on with Larry, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. You're listening to The Magic Mechanic Show right here on WDBO.
Now, the three big things
at the radio station WDBO. Sitting here with Larry Perry, the expert, the automotive maestro. Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic, 844-580-9326. The drill, this is how this works. You call me, 844-580-WDBO. Tell me your year, your make, your model, and then your issue. And then I put you on hold for a brief session, and I put you on the air with the Magic Mechanic himself. He answers your question in such a layman's terms, if that's how you like to perceive it, but he can get as technical as you're able to take it in. 844-580-9326. John is giving us a call from Kissimmee. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. My name is John. I have a 2010 Chevy Malibu. It's a hybrid Malibu.
Okay.
Now, granted, I've used the car without the hybrid part working. It'll run normally, but I've replaced the alternator. It's a humongous alternator. It looks like a generator. And I replaced it once, and then it was bad. You could see the battery light on the dashboard. And then I said, well, I must have got a bad alternator. I got another one, and the same battery light again in the dashboard. It'll drive, but when the battery is exhausted, it'll stall on me. So I was wondering, is there anything, perhaps a fuse underneath or something that I need to look at that might help me resolve this issue? It has like 53,000 miles on it.
Yeah. John, listen, this is one of those situations to where when you get a high amperage alternator like that, whenever it's in a charging situation, it produces enough voltage to power up a small city. And over a period of time, the wiring coming off of that actually feeds back to the battery, it literally cooks the wiring. I don't think you've got that many bad alternators. Your car might be making them go bad because of the wiring in the car. When I get a vehicle like this, and it doesn't have to be a hybrid, it can be any vehicle. If there's a charging system problem on an older vehicle, something's got a few years on it, the first thing I usually do is I'll go to the power port off the back of the alternator, and I will run probably like somewhere around an 8 to 10 gauge wire with an eyelet on it, hook it to the back of the alternator where the power supply output is, and run it directly to the battery, your 12-volt battery, and see how that actually winds up, how it actually charges the system back up. It's usually, when you run into an issue like this, it's usually because the wiring itself is deteriorated. What happens is when you're driving crazy amperages back through a wire out of an alternator, what happens is that wiring will start building, it gets cooked, and it starts building a real high resistance. And of course, if you're not getting the significant voltage back into the battery, then the alternator automatically tries to full field itself, because it's like, well, I'm not getting what I need to back to the battery, even though I'm working myself to death. So it works itself to death, burns itself up, trying to charge a battery because it's not able to get enough voltage back to it. And the only way you're going to cure that is and we don't tell you to rewire the vehicle. What we're telling you is to add an additional wire, a heavy gauge wire with some new soldered in terminals on it from your power port off the back of the alternator all the way to the battery itself. But by doing that, you can leave the one that's in there. It's not going to hurt anything. The only thing you're doing is just adding another way for it to get voltage back to the battery. And by doing that, that usually solves 95% of the issues that we run into when we've got an issue like you're dealing with here. But adding another power supply cable from the alternator to the battery, or whether it's a junction at the starter or wherever, but you follow that power lead coming back off the alternator and just run you another wire on it. Give that a try. That'll probably take care of your problem. But give that a shot. If that doesn't help you, then you're always able to give us a call at Magic Mechanic. We'll get it in and we'll take a look at it and see if we can help you with it if you can't resolve it on your own. We do appreciate your call, John. And once again, you too have a Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, John. That's wrapping up 1 hour down, 1 hour to go of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Call right now, 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO. We'll put you on the air with Larry Perry. Get your car question answered so you can move along with your automotive life. 844-580-9326. About half an hour away from our open mic section of the show. Feel free to download the open mic or the WDBO app in the App Store if you have an iPhone, or the Google Play Store if you have an Android. 844-580-9326. Or if you want to call Larry's shop right now to get your car scheduled, go ahead and call JD. He's sitting by for you. 407-629-2661. If he's not there, he'll call you back as soon as he can. We'll be right back with more of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Welcome back to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO. My name is Josh McCarthy, being the traffic cop between your questions and the answers provided by the one and only Magic Mechanic Larry Perry. Call right now, 844-580-9326. I'll get your year, your make, your model, your issue, and I'll put you in line to get your question answered by Larry. 844-580-WDBO. We're about a half an hour away from the open mic section, so feel free to send us a question via the WDBO app right there in the open mic section. Larry, 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. I'm happy to hear that you're still doing pretty okay. Going to make it through this here show.
Yeah, don't have my voice 100%. I was questioning whether I was going to be able to to do the program, a couple days ago, because I mean it was pretty rough, But when you get into those colder climates like that, you take us Florida folks and stick us into that. I mean it's but if you're going skiing with your 5-year-old granddaughter, what else are you going to do,
That's
And
right.
by the way, I'd done exceptionally well skiing. I thought I was going to make it all the way through without falling one stinking time. Until that last day. First thing that happened, we
always wins.
Yeah. We were way up on a mountain. We're coming down, and there was this little old gal. She had on a pair of skis. I don't know if she's much of a skier or not, but she was coming down through there, and she cut across and went right across my skis as I was skiing down. It didn't turn out well. So I'm like, well, I didn't get hurt. Ski popped off. I got all situated. I'm back on the trail again, and I was coming back down, and I got getting down at the very bottom of one of the slopes we're coming off of, and they put up these orange nets to kind of guide you, and that way you don't run right out into another trail and run into folks and stuff. So I'm coming down through there, and I'm kicking along. I'm chasing my oldest son. He's on a snowboard, and he's a very, very proficient snowboarder. So he's flying, of course. So I'm coming down through there, and I'm getting ready to make that turn and go in between all these orange nets. Well, when I started making the right-hand turn, I realized that there wasn't anything underneath my left ski. It was a great big ditch, and I'm only on half, my right ski's on something. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to fall. So, I pulled one of these things you would have done when you were 18 years old. I just pulled my skis up, and I turned my whole body around and pointed down, and next thing you know, I didn't fall at that point, but you ought to have seen all the orange nets I brought with me. I was so tangled up. I had orange nets in the skis, in my helmet. I had orange. That one lady who was working there, she come up and she said, "What in the world?" I mean, literally, it took them 15, 20 minutes to get me untangled out of all those orange nets. It was hilarious. So yeah, I fell twice. Let's put it that way. So other than that, I done real well, and we had a fantastic time. One of the neatest things about up there in those mountains, and I can't understand this, as much snow as they get, and I know they have to use tons of salt on them roads. But all the mid-'80s vehicles, the old F-150s, 250s, old Ford trucks, Toyota pickups, and 4Runners, these things from the mid-'80s, they look like they're brand new. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out why they're not rusted all to pieces. I mean, with all that horrible weather and the roads, and like I said, I'm sure they have to use salt. I'm just trying to figure out if the drier air and the less humidity has anything on the deterioration of metal up there like that. But I'm telling you, here you are in the middle of a snow town, basically, in mountains, and you're sitting around looking and you see these vehicles they look like they're brand new, and most of them were from the mid-'80s. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, that is incredible. But that's the first time I really ever paid attention to that. But they're just some excellent, I mean, these things are mint condition. I guess it's money, folks, probably just has vacation properties up there, and they just probably sit in the garage most of the time. But when they do use them, it's usually, I'm sure, in very snowy, bad road type of weather. But I was really impressed at the condition of so many mid and early 80s trucks and SUVs that were just, I mean, they looked like they were brand new. And you would expect them, I mean, if they were from the Northeast, they wouldn't be nothing left of them. But these were in amazing condition. And I'm sitting there, I was like, well, I thought I'd mention that. Maybe somebody's got an answer for me on why the bodies ain't fell clean off of these things just because they're from, say, Northern California. Hey, folks, welcome to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. It's a show where you call in, you ask your automotive questions, or we just talk about cars, trucks, vans, motorcycles. You can't beat the price. It's absolutely free. That number is 844 580-9326. And by the way, I do have a whole bunch of open lines right now, so we need some help in that department. So gather up your car questions and give us a holler. 844-580-WDBO. Go ahead and give us a ring. Josh is going to get you in line, and we'll go ahead and commence and take your car questions and see if we can help you out with, maybe it's a gas mileage issue. I don't care. We'll figure something out with it, for goodness sakes. We also take the automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new YouTube channel, so other folks may find the same type of help you seek. Plus, you can play it back anytime you want. That's a pretty cool feature, too. That number, again, is 844-580-WDBO, or if you want to do it the hard way, 844-580-9326. And if you need to speak to somebody immediately about a car, you can always call the Magic Mechanic Shop at 407-629-2661. You can speak to my general manager, JD. He's been there about as long as I have. He can help you with any of your automotive concerns, or if you need to get a vehicle in, or maybe you have an important question to ask him, maybe you need to set up towing, or you got a car in the garage that won't start, he could probably give you some help with that as well. Folks, our sponsors are very important to the show. We all pitch in financially to bring you the program every week and every year, like we have for over 31 years now. So if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Orlando Auto Upholstery, interior, convertible tops, carpet seats, headliners, on anything, whether it be a car, truck, van, an SUV, motorhomes, ATVs, recreational equipment, anything like that. If it's got an upholstery issue, maybe you're in the middle of a restoration project on an old car. I noticed we had a call on an old Austin Healey earlier. They didn't hang on, but I was really looking forward to talking to them about that vehicle. But anything like that, these older vehicles, people send seats and door panels and stuff to Orlando Auto Upholstery from all over the United States. It's impressive. They do incredible work. You can visit them at orlandoautoupholstery.com or give them a call at 407-898-2351. And the Fountain of Youth for your car, truck, van, or SUV, boat, motorcycle, tractor, bulldozer, lawn equipment is Amsoil. Most of you folks already know that. Amsoil is a little different than any other motor oil. It is made to run to heat and friction, as opposed to getting hot and thin and running away from the job it was actually intended on doing. So, it works backwards of other motor oils. That's the reason you'll hear people say, I've got 500,000 mile on a motor, 800,000 mile on a motor. There's no other lubricant ever going to give you the opportunity to do that. Same thing with a transmission. The seals inside of a transmission, they don't get hard and brittle, and they'll last just as long as the vehicle does. Same thing with the engine. If you run Amsoil in your engine, that's one of the biggest pluses as well. You don't have oil leaks. You don't have rear main seals leaking, these big expensive oil leak repairs, because the Amsoil keeps the seals soft and resilient. They don't get hard and brittle and cause leaks. So, it's a win-win. You don't wear an engine out. I can take a motor apart that's got 300,000 Amsoil miles on it, and I cannot find any visual or micable wear inside of an engine. It is absolutely amazing what this stuff does. You tell people this, and it's a hell of a sales pitch, Larry, but it's not. It is the truth. This stuff is amazing what it does as far as the longevity of an engine or transmission, even a differential. And that brings up another subject as well. On these newer Chevy trucks, the way that they've got these rear ends in these things, I'm telling you, if you don't run Amsoil in them, you would be lucky to get 80,000 mile out of them. That's usually when the rear ends and the bearings have to be rebuilt. It's just common. We see it all the time, and these are trucks that are 2-3 years old, and it's all because of the type of lubricants that they're trying to use in these rear differentials. GM it makes a great product, but if you don't run the right lubes in these diffs, I'm telling you, they will come back to bite you. Same thing with their transmissions. You get into the 2017s, 2018s, 2019s, whether it be an Escalade, a Silverado, a Yukon, a Sierra, any of those, the torque converter failures are absolutely they're out the roof. And you can read all this up on the internet. You can Google this stuff. You can see what I'm talking about. This isn't new news. I'm just telling you, if you run AMSOIL in these things at an early mile, when they're early in life, chances are you're not going to have so many of these big high dollar failures that so many people are facing now. And that really sucks when you got to turn around. You got to spend $8,000 on transmissions and torque converters and differentials on a truck that's 2-3 years old, ain't even got 80,000 miles on it. So, heed the warning. Put AMSOIL in this stuff. I'm telling you, you'll be able to keep it around a whole lot longer. We talk about the Pentastar 3.6 engines in these Dodges and Jeeps, and I get emails from all over the world, where people have ran AMSOIL in these engines, and now they got 250, 300,000 miles, never had a rocker arm or an engine failure, so there's something to be said for AMSOIL. If you're not using it now, you're just wanting to question it, maybe you just think I'm off my freaking rocker, you can go to AMSOIL.com and you can read up on AMSOIL, the benefits, and how it tests maybe against the current oil that you're using. Maybe that'll be enough to convince you. Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Folks, when it comes to replacing an engine or transmission in a vehicle that you're planning on repowering, whether it be a family vehicle or, fleet vehicles, the Jaspers, when you replace an engine or transmission with the Jasper, you get a 100,000-mile nationwide warranty with that product, and that's parts and labor. There's other remanufacturers out there, none of them as old as Jasper. They are the oldest. They've been around way before World War II, so they know what they're doing. They've been in business a long time, and they make fantastic products. And the best part of it is they stand behind their products. If you got an engine or transmission that's going to need to be replaced, you want to keep a vehicle on the road a while longer, to find out more, you can go to JasperEngines.com. You can also email me, Larry, at magicmechanic.com. We can give you a price out the door on any of those components that need replacement. We can give you we do them with an install kit, so it comes with every part that we would need while we're replacing a major component like that. So it's what you're going to spend before you spend it. Let me put it that way. And last but not least, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center, located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and of course AMSOIL synthetic lubricants. You can visit us at magicmechanic.com. Email me directly, Larry at magicmechanic.com. Let's head out to Apopka and let's talk to Ron.
Hey, Larry. I've had a 95 Grand Marquis, a 2002 Grand Marquis, and now I have a 2008 Grand Marquis. And I keep it running. It's light duty, just go to work and back, but it's starting to show its age now. So I started going to the different dealerships and test driving cars. I went to the auto show last year and this year, and I just couldn't find a car that was comfortable. Step over the, I guess the rail or the rocker, the running board, or the cutout for the wheel well, or the B pillar was in the way, or the seat was, I could find cars that had bigger seats, but the bolstering was so over bolstered, it felt like I was sitting on a wallet. And unless I wanted to go to a pickup truck, I just couldn't find a big, comfortable seat. I'm 6'3", so I've kept this thing motoring along, and it's a good car. It's got like about 210,000 miles on it now, and it's still in good shape. But before I get to my question, I wanted to give you that background that I had started looking around, and even some of the mid-sized SUVs or smaller. I mean, it really feels like you're sitting on a pincushion or a little student desk. So,
hey, Ron, let me tell you what. They're going to bump us for the three big things here. You hang on. Let me get right back to you right after the three big things. Hold on.
Welcome back to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Just 2 minutes here in this segment, and Ron was in the middle of his question, so I don't want to take up too much time. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, so I've tried to find a new vehicle that has a deep and wide seat cushion with modest bolstering, and without having to go to a large fuel-consuming SUV or pickup truck. I just haven't had any success. So I started looking for Grand Marquis used that were low mileage, and maybe my question to you is, do you know a company that would take like my Grand Marquis and try to restore it to almost showroom condition?
Well, body and paint work, if it's done correctly, that would be one of your major expenses if it needed, that would be the major one. As far as an engine, transmission, steering, mechanical stuff like that, I mean, that's what we do. I mean, we'll take a vehicle like that and go completely through it. Depending on engine and transmission, if those are items that need to be addressed, then so be it. I mean, but you're looking at it as a restoration situation. And nowadays, to take a vehicle and go completely through it, say you spend 10, 15 grand. Well, in the whole scheme of things nowadays, 10, 15 grand is not that much money, when you start figuring out what it would cost to replace a vehicle, so... But those are always options, and a lot of folks hang on to their cars. And, we got a whole lot of vehicles down there people feel the same way about. So restoring it mechanically is one thing. The other part of it is, Ron, if you're going to venture into something like that, I would go to a couple good independent body shops. If you need paint work or interior work, get the estimates on those first, and then find out mechanically what else the car needs. And if it's cost effective and you feel comfortable with it, by all means, fix the car and keep it. That's what a lot of folks are doing nowadays. I appreciate your call. Don't be a stranger on the show, and have a happy new year.
Welcome back to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO. My name's Josh McCarthy, the middleman between your questions and the answers provided by the one and only Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic. If you want to talk to Larry live on the air to get your car question answered, maybe your steering wheel shaking a little bit, or maybe there's a smell coming out of wherever smells should not be coming out of, call right now, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. This time of the show, we like to set aside to answer some of the open mics. Larry, what do you say we listen to that first one?
Let's go for it.
Oh, hang on a second. We still have AC/DC playing in the background. Let me push pause, because I am a professional radio connoisseur.
Hello, Robert in Ocala here with the 2013 Dodge Avenger 3.6-liter engine. My owner's manual says to replace the spark plugs at 150,000 miles. I'm wondering if that's waiting too long. And the car currently has 66,000. Thank you.
All right. In most cases, what we're dealing with nowadays, vehicles in most cases come with what we call iridium spark plugs. And that means that the grounding strap, or the grounding post that runs throughout the plug, has iridium in it. And what it does is it makes it extremely durable. So this is kind of my rule of thumb. Most manufacturers recommend to replace spark plugs right at 100,000 miles. And I tell folks all the time, I say, you know what? I said a lot of times you'll put a new set of plugs in a car, and you really don't see any major improvements or any improvement in fuel economy or anything like that, unless there's a problem in that cylinder or whether there's a problem with the spark plug itself. Now, the reason it is a very good idea to replace them at 100,000 miles is because a spark plug itself is made out of steel. And the cylinder heads that are on the engines are made out of aluminum. So you've got two dissimilar metals there that are constantly being exposed to heat expansion and cold contraction constantly. And plus you get acids that'll build up in and around the threads. If you exceed 100,000 miles on these spark plugs, you may have to live with them for the rest of their life because they may not come out of the head unless you remove the cylinder heads. And then, because the plugs will usually break off in the heads. They won't come out, or it'll bring the threads with it when you do. So 100,000 mile is a really good area for spark plug replacement. 150,000 miles is kind of ridiculous in my book. I think that is so overkill. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't be running them that long, but because there's going to be some issues if you keep them in there that long. But replacing them every 100,000 mile, that's nothing but just good maintenance. 60,000 mile, I'm going to tell you, I think it would just be too early. There's a lot of car manufacturers that do recommend at 60,000, but in a case like this, if we took them out now and looked at them, they're probably going to be brand new. But your biggest thing that you need to be concerned with that 3.6 engine is to, number one, use AMSOIL and stay away from the 20 weight oils. You want to use a 0W30 Signature Series AMSOIL, and that'll keep that 60,000 mile Pentastar 3.6 engine running a long time. But you don't want to use 20s in these 3.6 engines. You want to use a 0.30. With the 0, you got the lowest cold pour point you can get, and you got a 30 weight at normal operating temperatures only. So the oil is plenty fluid when it's cold, and you don't have to run these ultra thin oils. But you need to use the AMSOIL, and you need to use the 0W30. That is the secret to success with that 3.6 liter engine. Thanks for your open mic.
Thank you so much. We got one more coming your way, one more open mic. If you want to send one in right now, maybe I can flip it over before Larry finishes this answer. Download the free WDBO app and send us an open mic. Here we go.
Larry, a quick question on the AMSOIL MP. I live up north and just wondering your thoughts on using that as a undercarriage or frame rust inhibitor, and also your thoughts on the Chevy Colorado diesel for quality of engine and just for a runaround car. Thank you.
Well, the MP is incredible. That's their metal protection stuff. What it does is it does provide some lubrication, but it really builds up. There used to be a product that the U.S. military used that is almost like a wax coating. You spray it on metal, and it's got that funny smell to it, but it'll almost turn into like a wax-type protective film, and it prevents metal from rusting. And it's really funny because back in the late 70s, when I was working for Honda, we used to get those little goldfish bowl cars, and little Civics and stuff. And being in West Virginia, the first thing we did, we took a unibit, and which is a drill bit, and we drilled to about a half inch, and we used something that was almost exactly like the AMSOIL MP, and that's what we sprayed in all the rocker panels inside, and all around the quarter panels and inside the fenders and underneath the vehicle as an undercoating type of thing. And then we would put the rubber plugs into all the holes we drilled into the body itself, for all these panels that would be subjected to rust. But it's almost exactly the same thing we used that many years ago that AMSOIL is actually taken, and they're putting it in a spray can. It's great on chains, bicycle chains, stuff like that, lawn equipment, anything that's going to be exposed to any type of harsh environment. It really does a wonderful job, and it's pretty durable. I mean, to get it off after you get it, you spray it on something and let it set up. It does. It's not very tacky at all. It'll set up pretty good, and then if you try to wash it off, you're going to be in for it. I mean, but to use it as a a rust inhibitor of some sort, metal protection underneath the vehicle, like an undercoating or something like that, I don't think you could really get a whole lot better than that. As a matter of fact, that's similar to what we see on a lot of the newer vehicles. They don't really use the old rubberized undercoating as much as they used to, but they do coat a lot of that stuff with that particular type of a barrier. So, yeah, the AMSOIL MP, that's a wonderful product. It really is. So, yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd spray it on there. I don't think it'll give you any issues whatsoever. And it'll hold up. It'll last a long, long, long time. You got my blessing. Go for it. Thanks for the open mic.
Thank you so much for the open mics today. Again, feel free to download our free WDBO app right there in the App Store or Play Store and send us an open mic that way. We love to hear from you. It's a kind of a way to get some calls on the air without having to call in. So speaking of callers, let's go to Steve calling from Deltona. And Steve doesn't have a question so much as a continuation of the trucks out west conversation. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, hello.
Hey, Steve, go ahead.
Your answer to your question about why the cars don't rust that much out west. It's because when they up in Tahoe, they do not use salt on the roads. They use sand and cinder.
You can see it in the snow. You can see it in the snow because it's kind of like black. You can see that. Yeah. I would agree with that. But why would they? I mean, it's really funny because I'm telling you, you go out there and you drive around and you sit and you look at some mid-'80s Ford truck, and it looks like it rolled off the showroom. I'm like, and a lot of these you could tell they were not repaints. These are vehicles that have been preserved that well out there. Me being from West Virginia, me being from West Virginia, I mean, they get any snow on the road. I mean, the first thing they do is got salt trucks running up and down the highways like crazy. And it shows, too. You look at a 3-year-old vehicle and half the body's gone on it. And Lord forbid you got to go and do any serious chassis work to it in the future. You're not going to take anything apart unless you got a torch with you. But I'm telling you, I was just those vehicles were so well preserved. I mean, they were as well preserved as a vehicle here from Florida. And the only thing we really have to fight against here in Florida is the UV rays, because it's so hard on paint. It's so hard on, clear coats and stuff like that. That's why you see so many of the clear coats, flaking and that sort of thing. But the bodies here last a long, long time. But up there, I was really surprised, especially with that type of a climate, that much snow. And I'm like, well, there's got to be something to this. They can't be using salt, or these old vehicles would have been gone years ago. So I was really impressed, and I'm like, well, I guess that answers my question, Steve. If they're using sand and cinder as opposed to salt, then that would definitely explain. And you know what? When you think about it, using something like that's got to be a whole lot more environmentally friendly than using salt. You get up here in the Northeast where they just pound everything with that salt. You go and you think about it. As it deteriorates, that salt is going to be running into all your freshwater streams and probably contaminating a lot of water sources. I mean, you don't want to mix salt with fresh water, especially if it's got fish and wildlife and everything else depending on it. So maybe that's one thing that California has got figured out. I'm sure they got a tax for it, though. But hey, you know what? If it works, you go with it. I appreciate your call, Steve. I appreciate you checking in with us. You have a wonderful new year, and I think we're coming up here on a break.
That's right, Larry. We got time for one more quick segment after this here quick break. 844-580-9326 will put you on the air with Larry Perry. 844-580-WDBO. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, and as always streaming live in the WDBO app. If you had a chance to listen to the show, you heard tons of great information being delivered by the one and only Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic. But as the show ends, we may have to give you a new phone number to call. feel free to call his shop, the Magic Mechanic Shop, right there off Lee Road, 407-629-2661. That's 407-629-2661. Larry, I believe you may have some emails that you have to read.
Oh,
as well.
we got more emails than we'd ever be able to get to.
Right.
Hey, but listen, one of the things I wanted to kind of mention here, and we've had the Mecum auction going on here in Kissimmee, which is a big ordeal. And a lot of folks go down there and they find their dream car. They buy the older, classic, antique muscle cars, and it just. I always tell folks, all you are is just a caretaker of these older vehicles. You want to keep them preserved, and you want to enjoy them. And then when we're gone, we hope somebody else is going to come along and do the same thing, to keep that type of heritage alive. Jay Leno is a shining example of that. Reggie Jackson is as well. They keep and they buy and they store and restore these vehicles, and it's wonderful to keep that type of history around. But the one thing that I do want to try to point out is, and it's not just for older, antique, classic, collectible vehicles. Any vehicle that you got, let's say if it's a 20-year-old pickup truck, and you are bound and determined you're going to restore that vehicle because you just absolutely love it. And we all know that you can spend quite a bit of money on any type of restoration like that. It just adds up, depending on how much you do with one. But the one thing I do want folks to take into account is if you buy an older vehicle, or if you've got one and you start doing all this restoration work to it, and you make these major investments with it, and you still use the same old insurance coverage that you have for the last 20 years, that's not going to do it. Those vehicles, when you get to that when you get to a point like that, you've got to get a specialty insurance company. If your insurance company doesn't provide it, if your auto insurance does not provide it, somebody like Haggerty or somebody like that does specialty insurance that can insure that vehicle for the actual value of the vehicle or what you've got into it invested. You see what I'm saying is, let's just say, for an example, you've got a 2003 F-150 that you absolutely adore. And some of those are just incredible vehicles, by the way. You get the ones with the step side and the four-wheel drive, and they're set up really nice, and somebody takes them and they just restore that whole entire vehicle. Well, here they've probably got $35,000, maybe $40,000 in this thing in a complete showroom restoration. So, and then you wind up, God forbid, something happens. Hurricane, tree limb. Oh boy, that's going to ruin your day. And then here you got an insurance company that's wanting to give you $3,500 for the truck because that's the book value on it. See, you can't do that. The insurance part of it is so important. You got to have these vehicles insured for their actual cash value, and the older they get, usually the more they're worth. And so when you take a vehicle like that, you got new motor, transmission, rear end's been redone, you got a lift on it, you got new wheels and tires. Well, you cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So you got to take all that into account. You just call up your insurance agent and said, yeah, I'll just keep the full coverage on my 03 F-150 or my 91 Van den Plas Jaguar, that's mint condition sitting in the garage that never gets used. Well, shoot, the daggone car's worth a lot of money. But the problem with it is the actual retail value on it is nothing. So you got to take into account that and make sure that you're dealing with an insurance company, a specialty insurance company. Haggerty is one of them, but anything like that, you want to make sure that you got good coverage on it, and you're going to be, compensated. God forbid something actually really bad happens to that vehicle, and so it's just a good way of covering yourself. You don't want to get into a situation where you wind up with a major financial loss due to something like that. And a lot of folks just don't know any better, But any of your older cars and classic vehicles, well, you pretty much know you're going to have a specialty policy on those. But a lot of folks, you sit there and you think about it, most people wouldn't think, well, I need a specialty policy on an old Jeep Wrangler or something like that. Yes, you do, because your actual cash value, or what the actual book value is nothing, compared to how much money you probably have in the vehicle. So that's where your specialty insurance comes into play. And I'm going to tell you, if you're a good driver, those specialty policies are very inexpensive. I think for my C8 Corvette, I probably pay somewhere in the neighborhood of just a little over $100 a month for every possible insurance you can put on that daggone car. And plus they have those built-in evaluations with it where they'll give you like an extra 5% on top of whatever the cash value of the car is from when you bought it. So it actually goes up in value every year. And I'm sitting there going, well, shoot, you can't beat that, especially for that kind of money. And when you're talking about them, insuring a $100,000 car, for goodness sakes. So those are all things I want you to be aware of as you restore these vehicles and you want to keep these older ones on the road. Make sure you got them insured for what they're actually worth. Folks, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, show sponsors are the reason we do the show, and I have a job. You can tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time here in Central Florida on 107.3 FM, HD Radio 96.52, and AM 580. Worldwide at WDBO.com, and click Listen Live, or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO Radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com, or you can also email car questions directly to me, Larry, at magicmechanic.com. Glad to be back with you this week, folks. Everybody have a happy new year, and make sure it's a safe one. Thanks for tuning in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show and, of course, our new YouTube channel. For more automotive tips, tricks, and just general information, make sure you subscribe to our new YouTube channel.